Round one. Fight.
Heroes never die.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite store on the Citadel.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Power, sex, power. They both come down to one thing.
Hungry gamers.
Hello, and welcome, boys and girls, to a very special PlayStation 5-centric episode of the Hungry Gamers podcast. We are powered by 8bit.net, those sexy legends over at Audio Technica, and those equally sexy legends over at Manscaped, but more on those guys and gals later. I'm your extremely humble host, Brendan White. You can find me just about everywhere at Brendan8bit. And joining me today in the podcast co-hosting chairs, the Resistance and Killzone to my Miles Morales, Australia's Jono Pech, who you can find at Jono himself, and my podcast, Ride or Die. You can find her at Miss Ali Hart on them socials. We're talking about Miss Ali Hart. How you doing today?
Fantastic.
Pretty excited.
And for those that didn't understand those references, they are PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5 launch day one exclusive titles. So that's the synergy.
I got it.
I didn't.
Yeah. So here we are. We are literally a week in since the PlayStation 5 was released. So we thought, what better way to get the band back together and talk some PlayStation 5 than on a PlayStation 5-centric podcast. It's going to be a little bit of a tighter run time, so we're looking at sub 60 minutes here, touch wood. But we're just going to be sort of deep diving on our initial impressions and feelings and, pros and cons, if applicable, regarding the PlayStation 5. So I guess we could jump into the first thing that probably everybody sees or have seen leading up to this release, and when you get that big giant box arriving on your doorstep, you open it up and it's the aesthetics. And my goodness gracious me, this thing is a beast. It measures in at just under 39 centimeters by 26 by 8 centimeters and weighs over 4.5 kilos. So that's 10 pounds for y'all in America. It is a big, big beast. And my initial impressions is, it's ugly. But where do you guys stand on this?
Ugly. It is a big, chunky, ugly thing. I can't stand it. It's quite the eyesore. So I'm glad that I have a entertainment cabinet where I can put it out of sight and out of mind.
Does your entertainment cabinet, does it have a door so you can actually properly hide it? Because mine's in the slot, so I can see it, and it looks at me with its very futuristic sci-fi cybernetic
glow.
Angry blue eyes. Yeah, so
Well, we have this IKEA kind of cabinet where it's got a door but it's mesh, so we can still access it, and remote controls and everything still works. So it's obscured.
Okay.
It's obscured.
Well, that's a plus. That's a plus, because I debated putting it on the vertical on the other side of my TV, because I've got the Series X on one side on the vertical, the big black obelisk. But I managed to fit the PlayStation 5 in the entertainment slot. So it's semi out of sight, but never out of mind. JP, what about you? I know you've been fortunate enough to modify yours to make it look a lot better than it did on launch. But what's your thoughts on the look and feel of this thing?
I like it. I never had massive issues with it like most people did. I didn't think it was as good looking as other consoles that we've had, especially the PS4. I think just looks so sleek compared to this. But yeah, getting old mate Tag Mods to paint it black has been a huge plus. I think I'm happy to have it on display now, horizontal on top of the TV unit underneath the telly, and I think it looks pretty sweet, at least at my house.
It's crazy that something as simple as putting a fresh coat of paint on those blades of the console makes it look 100 times better.
So much better.
And the black just makes it look so sleek.
Yeah, I've been surprised by some of the response, actually. I put it on Reddit and got kind of roasted by the gaming subreddit community for ruining the console and all this crap. And it's dudes, come on, it looks like crap. You gotta, as soon as you can, people are gonna be changing the white to something else, whether it's black or to some other color.
Yeah, I've been chatting to the guys at Tag Mods about doing some changes and adjustments to mine, but I'm down a rabbit hole with them now. It started from just talking about changing a color to now it's like, how crazy do you want to go? What's your favorite games? What's your favorite colors?
Yeah.
What can we do? And I'm like, oh no. Oh no. I'm going to need a cabinet just to display this thing when it's all said and done, because there's going to be like a giant T-Rex breaking out of the side of it or something.
I
He'll
think
do that.
overall, though, the design of the PlayStation 5, it has this really obscure, like, futuristic statue art piece look to it. And I feel like it's really hard to blend that sort of stuff in, you know, a normal set of homes.
Yeah.
So it just stands out. Where, like, the alternatives were usually just, like, black cubes.
Yeah.
Which is pretty easy to just kind of fit into any aesthetic. So they really...
If you've got the PSVR and you've got like the charging dock, like if you've got the whole collection with the Pulse headset, it probably works. But if you've got a black TV and the grey Nintendo Switch and the Xbox, like it really would stand out quite a lot if you're someone with that kind of setup. And
same with your furniture. Like, unless you've got like high gloss white TV cabinets, like it doesn't really work with anything. Like I've got like wood and concrete sort of industrial furniture, and this thing just sort of really stands out and doesn't look like it's got a place there. But I think once it gets a coat of paint, it'll be a lot better. And just the angles of it, like having to put that weird little universal mount clip on it, depending on if you're going vertical or horizontal, you have to use that even if you're trying to lay it flat, because otherwise it's sort of just skewed and off balance. It sort of, I don't know, but I get what they're trying to do. It is trying to say, you know, this is the future. You know, we're edgy, we're cool. It's ripped straight out of Detroit Become Human, though. Like that's all I think of every time I look at this thing.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with the stand, like horizontally at least. It doesn't really clip in for me. Like it's very loose. Like if I pick up my console and move it, it's almost like you leave the stand behind. You have to like keep it like pushed in. I don't know if that's the same for everyone, but that's what my experience has been.
Well, there's no like dedicated slots on the back. Like you line it up with I can't remember which of the face buttons. Symbols. Yeah, the triangles I think might be the end caps where you line up the clips on this thing. But yeah, there's no dedicated grooves. It's just like in the photos is like just put it there, you know. So you sit it on, you go, all right. Well, it's not moving too much, so that's good.
It's fine if like you just put it there and it sits there, so it's fine for that purpose. But if you're wanting to, you know, rearrange it, like if you've got other consoles and you want to try and figure out what's the best way to do it, it's not as simple as just moving it. You have to kind of hold it together as you move it around. Yeah. But overall, like, it is what it is. It's a big beast. It's a good talking point, and I think that's something that maybe Sony wanted, is if you've got one of these in your house and someone comes around, they'll be like, what's that? You know, what is this thing? So maybe, maybe it generates a bit of interest and a bit of hype around the coffee table. But you know, it's all right. And the cool thing is that it's out. You know, it's in our hands. We've all been fortunate enough to get one day one and experience these things in that debut fashion. So I guess we could sort of pivot onto sort of diving in what's underneath that very unique aesthetic and talk about some of the hardware that's running under the hood of this thing. So first and foremost, if we're sort of going through the comparisons to the PlayStation 5 compared to the previous gen PlayStation 4, we've got 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.5 gigahertz compared to the 8 Jaguar cores at 1.6 gigahertz. So we're double the CPU processing power there. The big one that's on everybody's lips, I know, is the teraflops. The PlayStation 4 1.84 teraflops, where the GPU running in the PlayStation 5 is a big beefy 10.28 teraflops. So, we're looking at 5 times the power, hypothetically, between last gen and now this gen. Memory is doubled as well, going from 8 gig up to 16 gig. The bandwidth, everything just about has been doubled or enhanced upon fairly substantially. So, it's a positive step in the right direction. It's not probably the groundbreaking leap forward that everybody was hoping it to be. Like, I think it's more so instead of a big jump forward, it's a baby step or a couple of baby steps, and that's not a bad thing. Progress is progress, and it's noticeable within the games and within just the general interaction of this console. Like, the biggest thing I've found, and this is agnostic from this and the Series X, is just the boot times and the speed of this damn thing. Like.
getting in and out of games, loading from scene to scene, fast traveling in games. It's just about non-existent compared to previous gen, where it could be 10 times the waiting time, really, fast traveling and things, where now it's the days of fast traveling, jumping on your phone, fluffing around, sending a message, grabbing a drink, whatever it is, that's all gone now. You don't have time because you could be thrown into a world event in the game or a combat scenario 5 seconds after you've fast traveled, and you could be in some trouble. So that's my biggest takeaway, is just the general speed of doing things in and out of game. What about yourselves? What's some of the big notices that you guys have sort of encountered in this past week with the console, as far as you wanted to talk as jumps in hardware from previous gen to now this current gen?
Yeah, I've gone from the base PS4 to the PS5. So I never had the Pro and never had the 60 frames and the 4K and all that. So it's a huge leap forward for me. And the loading times is definitely the thing that I've enjoyed the most. It's actually changed the way that I play games as well. Like in Miles Morales, for example, if there's a part of the map that I would normally swing to, I can just be like, no, I'll just quick travel there because it takes like half a second.
You don't even get the subway animations anymore. You just walk out of the subway, not even on the train.
There's a setting to turn those animations on if you miss them.
Oh, but, okay.
And the same in like Valhalla, going from the PS4 version to PS5. Like you're just a bit more happy to try and use the quick travel to get around rather than trying your luck across the countryside. And I think you said on THG like it's 8 to 10 seconds to get anywhere. I did notice going back to your settlement takes a bit longer on PS5. It's probably an extra 5 seconds because I don't know, there's a bit more things to interact with there perhaps. But reloading from one area to the same, like a previous save, or dying and reloading is even quicker because it's not having to change where you are in the game. That's really good. And it's even like changing, like for example, if we were playing Ghost of Tsushima Legends and I was in there and I was joining another session, like if you and Benny were playing and I was waiting for you, I could be like, okay, I'm going to go play NBA 2K, and when you guys are finished, I'll jump back into Legends. Like that's not something I would have ever done on PS4 because of the amount of time it takes to boot up. But you can literally be going from the UI of the PS5 into gameplay within like 20 to 30 seconds, which is pretty unheard of for that previous generation. So I think from that aspect, it's such a improvement to like just the quality of life for the console.
100%. And I'd be very curious to know, like you're talking about Valhalla there, I'd love if there was a setting I could look at for average load times or time wasted in those load screens from my Xbox One X to the Series X, because it is such a huge leap forward.
I'm sure it's on Digital Foundry somewhere.
Yeah, it'll be kicking around there somewhere. You mentioned the UI, which I guess is sort of it's obviously done through the hardware, but almost sort of weaves back into the aesthetics as well. What did you guys think of the new home screen and how you interact with that now, and just sort of, I guess, the fresh coat of paint they've given that?
It's got a few flaws. Did you want to talk about what your experience is, Ali?
Well, it's an improvement to the previous one. I'll give it that, because I definitely felt like the previous was a bit cluttered. Everything was a bit like all over the place. You really had to search for things. It's cleaner, but I would still say that there is still a few issues with getting kind of lost among things and trying to find things. So it's better, but it's not probably at its best.
Yeah, there's a few teething things, I think, where we're so used to what it was before that now you're like, okay, where's my friends list? Oh, it's under game base. What's that?
Yeah.
Or like you want to go to trophies. Oh, you got to go to your profile and then click on trophies. And even just like which of the two UI menus comes up when you press the PS button versus when you hold the PS button, like it's going to take a while to get that muscle memory back because it's so ingrained in people who've been playing a ton of PS4. And I think for me, like the most ingrained part of that UI is like you hold down the PS button and that's how you go into rest mode. But now you have to like just press it quickly, just press it once, and then get used to that change. And that's not an easy thing to like lose after years and years and years of being able to do that.
I didn't know how to turn my PlayStation.
It felt like I was trying to solve a puzzle. I was done playing Miles the other day, and I'm like, okay, now I'm just going to put it into rest mode, and I'm like, this button, no. Okay, double press, no. Long press, no. Press, and it took me a couple of minutes, then I cracked the code, but
Yeah.
I don't know if there was like a sort of a quick guide or an easy start wizard when you first booted the console up, and maybe I skipped it, but I certainly didn't see any guidance to navigate to those hit points when I was going through the update process and things like that. So we've already had a 900 megabyte update for quality of life and stability.
I think there'll be a few more. I think there'll be a few more to come because there's been a few issues that we've run into. Whether it's like me personally, if I'm in a party chat with someone and they leave, it's you stay in that chat by yourself. So the game audio and even the level of your like haptics and vibration settings are different based on still being in a party. So you have to like go into the picture card and leave the party. As well as that and other issues that we'll probably talk about again. Yeah,
it's a bit disjointed with some of their menu methodologies, especially the party stuff, and that's something that's on previous gen as well, where if we were all partied up and you two left, I'd still be in that and have to deal with it instead of it just automatically just moving you back to the game and going back to those base settings. On the hardware front, those quality of life patches that you're talking about, I've had two major freezes and consoles shutting down so far. I reckon I've played close to 20 hours total on the console, probably maybe a little bit less. But it's occurred both playing Miles Morales, where the game has just completely froze. I can't even press the PlayStation button to sort of go back to the menus. Like this thing just jammed up, had to actually pull the cord on, like the power cord on the back, and do a hard reboot. That's happened twice now. So yeah, it is a little bit scary because I'm like, have I got a bit of a duck egg of a console here? Is this going to be a trouble machine for a while? But we'll see how it goes. Like, it's still, as I said, I haven't played a ton to experience if this is something that's going to be consistent. But twice in under 20 hours is a little bit concerning for me. But with early tech and, as you said, quality of life updates, and we're going to be getting patches very frequently between now and the next probably 3 months as they iron out kinks and bugs. It did make me get a little bit scared though, because I've put I reckon 20 odd hours thereabouts on the PlayStation 5 and probably 40 to 50 on the Series X, and the Series X hasn't had any of that yet, but it could just be coincidental. I'm not saying this is better or worse, but it's just a little bit of a like, oh boy, we'll see what happens here. But the hardware, I think the biggest talking point on the hardware though is the controller, the DualSense controller. Like I was very much like, oh yeah, it's got settings that a lot of these other elite controllers and third-party tier 1 controllers can do. And playing Miles Morales, you feel a little bit of it, little things like just getting audio through the little, controller speaker and stuff, which is nothing new to Sony, is one thing, but you really start to see the power and the future of where you could take this controller playing Astro's Playroom of all things, the pre-installed pack-in game on the console. And I sort of had my first foray into that game today, and it really got me excited as far as where you could take this technology, and it really showed what the future could hold as far as interactions and just dialing up the level of immersion in games with this console. So, Miss Hart, what's your thoughts on the DualSense so far? Like, do you think it lives up to this hype? Because it has been pretty universally praised and touted as probably the best thing of current gen.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, like, I was a bit like, how good can it honestly be? Like, yeah, playing Miles Morales, I think you don't really get too much of it. Like you said, you get a little bit of sound cues, and you get like when you have Spidey sense, the controller vibrates a little for you. But yeah, Astro's Playroom, it is phenomenal seeing how what it can do and like how much it enhances the gaming experience. Like, for everything from the vibration to the resistance and the triggers, and then even how do you say it without it sounding vulgar, but blowing into it?
I hate blowing into it every time. I'm like, here we go.
I know, you're like sitting there.
Don't touch me.
I was in a party chat with Jared the first time I was playing it. I was like, I'm about to blow it because I was testing them. Like, there's a mic in the DualSense, and we were testing it out because it's actually surprisingly really good. And
is it?
Yeah, like the noise cancellation is amazing. Like, you can't hear them pressing buttons. There's no like tapping of vibrations.
Wow.
So whatever they've digitally put into there with the software, like the mic software, is super impressive. But anyway, where it falls apart is where you have to blow into the mic, and you're like, sorry, man, you know. But yeah,
a little ASMR.
What was your favorite effect? Because there's like some, like, each level in Astro really kind of tries to feature something different in as far as what the DualSense can do.
I feel like the one that really, like, it didn't succeed in what it was trying to do, but I still enjoyed it, where there was a rain, like
the raindrops.
Yeah, it was meant to be like you had the sound of rain coming through the controller, but you were also getting like sensation of vibration, like patter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wouldn't say that like I wouldn't say it sounded like rain. It sounded more like marbles, but I still understood the effect and really enjoyed both the incorporation of both sound through the controller and the vibration, and just like how immersive it was, like how really drawn into it was. Like I was drawn into the game, but I was also really drawn into the experience of like what I was doing movement wise. Like it's a different experience altogether. It's really, really unique. I didn't think it was going to affect me that much of how much, you know, adjusting a controller and having that add to the experience of gaming, but yeah, it's won me over.
Yeah. And then you've obviously got the triggers, like when you're, you know, when they're trying to replicate like the feeling of a springboard, or like if like a rocket blasting off and controlling those different thrusters. I think there's a lot of things that hopefully other devs can incorporate into their games. The thing that's kind of, I don't know if you'd call it concerning, is that like Miles Morales doesn't really capitalize on it so much. No. There is like when you swing a web like that and you pull back on the triggers, like that actually works quite well, and it's subtle enough that it's not like overpowering. And I think they probably did that by design. But I think the fact that Astro's come out and there's been such a positive reaction to it, that everyone's seemingly loved it. It's like an 83 on Metacritic. I hope that devs can play that and go, oh, this is what we can do, rather than, I guess, Insomniac developing this game in a bit more of a vacuum, without having the ability to fully take hold of what the haptics can do.
Yeah, it reminded me playing Astro's Playroom when I first got to play the Nintendo Switch for the first time, and we were playing like 1-2 switch and snipper clips and stuff, where you're feeling like, you know, the marbles roll around in the Joy-Con and things like that. It felt like that's the biggest enhancement to this gen for me, is just this new level of immersion with the graphics and the power to match. Like the Switch, you got the immersion, but you got, you know, 720p resolution graphics, and it wasn't a powerhouse in that regard. It was more about the interaction and the fun and the sense of playing this with friends and family and people that are non-gamers that could pick this tech up and go, oh my God, like this is next level. And that's what this controller and even, just showcasing in Astro's Playroom just did for me. Like I was smiling and I'm sitting there thinking of the possibilities and seeing some of this tech replicated into some of the upcoming AAA games and how they're going to utilize some of these different sort of things that this controller can do. Like I really enjoyed the GPU world, where you're doing a lot of traversal in the zip up monkey suit, and the bow and arrow mechanics left a little bit to be desired, but that really emphasized the haptic feedback and the adaptive triggers, that world I felt. So it was really cool to feel that resistance on the triggers. Like you mentioned, you get a little bit of it in Miles Morales, but you don't get much variety compared to what they were showing in Astros. So that was really cool for me. And just seeing all these little bits of tech harmonize. The sound and the haptic feedback and using these triggers and just seeing it all synergize was great. And I love the feel of the controller. I love the textured grips. And it's even cuter too when you get like a power zoom and you see it's all the little PlayStation icons, but it feels really nice in your hand as opposed to the more smoother, more meek previous gen controllers. It's nice and beefy, which I like.
I'm going to have a weird complaint. I think it's too big for my hands. Or my fingers. Because when I was playing Miles Morales, there was like a lot of issues where I think it was like for the healing factor, and I'm trying to navigate and then I'm also trying to heal, and just the extension over to like hit the heals and everything like that just felt like it was a bit of a reach for me. But overall hand feel is like really good. So
I think there'll be a bit of a learning curve for devs with the controller, definitely. Like I haven't really noticed Valhalla using it too much. It's in NBA 2K21 on the PS5 version, but it's bad. Like, it's actually not good. Like, me and my brother have both turned it off in the game because it like seemingly sometimes vibrates for no reason. Like when you're off ball, no one's near you, and it's just like vibrating slightly, and then
it's frustration because you want that ball.
Yeah, it's just like tensing up. But it's kind of used well in the sense of like, you know, if someone bodies up on you, then it like vibrates a bit, or if you're like trying to sprint and you're pulling down that turbo on the trigger, it kind of resists. But in a game like that, it's actually more annoying than you want it to be. Like it's a hindrance to the way that you play because it's such a performance, like a Twitch based kind of thing. Obviously any like esports people or fighting game community, like they're all just gonna like turn off those settings because they might hold you back by a millisecond in your response time and that kind of thing. But like I said, I'm writing that off to like teething and the learning curve. I think that it can be I think it can make any game better. And, you know, it's exciting to see what they can do with it in racing games and with, you know, particularly, I haven't played Call of Duty, but I'm guessing like each gun has a different feel, which would be a really cool thing if they can incorporate that into it.
Yeah, and my fanboying is already excited for the next Horizon Zero Dawn because obviously there's a lot of bow and arrow action in that game. So using those triggers and experiencing a little taste of it in Astro with that little sort of kitty bow got me excited to take down big mechanized dinosaurs next year. So that's cool.
Yeah. Even like the environmental inclusion as well, like just, you know, being within the elements of like wind and rain and like all those kind of things, and maybe feeling resistance and like I said, the sound coming through the controller as well. I just think it's going to create a next level of immersion in those kind of like adventure games where even graphically it's a spectacle. So I think it's going to really draw us in.
Think about what someone like Kojima could do if Death Stranding came out like this year or next year, like how he would have used the controller. Like I'm excited to see him get this and go, okay, now we're talking, like rub his hands together about the ways he can mess with people.
You feel like the liquid of the
you're slopping around through the speaker. It's going to be, they're going to like remaster that game for this console for sure to utilize some of that tech. Like, you know, Kojima can bottle a fart and people would buy it because it's so visionary. So, yeah, people will queue up for next gen, now current gen Death Stranding with more. You know, imagine the level of monster immersion you can get drinking cans. You probably feel like gulps down the throat through the controller. And
did you see the Death Stranding reference in Astro Bot? One of the best ones, I think.
I missed that one.
The little guy. I saw the little guy carrying the
he's carrying like a ton of the data packs on his back.
Yeah, and I went and punched him.
You can punch everybody. You feel bad sometimes.
They can take it.
I'll start talking about this game if we're actually going to deep dive on some of these games. Let me tell you.
We will in a sec. A few other things I like with the controller, USB-C charging. One thing I didn't like was the fact they didn't pack in a USB-C to USB-C lead. So you've got C to USB, so you don't get that full speed charge. Like I've used a cord and gone C to C just to get the controllers charged quicker because I didn't buy a dock just yet. Like to, but I thought that was cool. I like the create button as well. That's smooth, and that's something that both the consoles have sort of gone and focused on as far as ease of access to upload those highlights, whether it be a still image, a pre-recorded bit on the create side as well. I like that they give you the ability to automatically save photos or videos of trophies you get. Like, I'm not a trophy guy, but I guess for those people that do hunt those platinums and stuff, that's a cool way to showcase it now instead of just the old static image where you can see you've taken down that boss or done that final crazy thing. But it's got to be mindful to, if you're not interested in that, but also if you are interested, just be mindful that they save locally to the hard drive, and those video clips will chew up that storage fairly quickly. So I've gone in and turned that off just to avoid that potential hiccup. The other thing I wanted to say is on the light bar / touchpad. I've noticed that some games are utilizing that in different ways, and the one I wanted to reference, I saw someone playing Resident Evil 3 the other day on it, and the light bar around the touchpad itself, depending on your health status, it would show green, orange, or red, depending. Green's obviously best health in the game, orange is where you're mid-tier, and red's where you're close to death. So instead of having to go into, like, press the button to go in the menu, it shows how you are in real time in the game. I thought that was a cool little nod. So little things like that can add a little bit more quality of life and just ease of access in your games.
That's so much better than the PS4 because they would use it in a lot of interesting ways, but you couldn't see it because it was on the other side of the controller. So you might see a reflection in your TV, but like in GTA...
Unless you're set in darkness.
Yeah. In GTA, for example, it would flash like red and blue when you were being chased by police, which is a great idea, but you never notice it unless you're watching someone else play.
Yeah. Yeah, it was sort of missed opportunities, but they've realized and reimagined it on the DualSense, which is great. Anything else you guys wanted to talk about with the controller before maybe we look to pivot and talk about some of the games and what we've sort of experienced in that realm?
The only thing I really wanted to bring up is this the only controller that's going to be compatible with the PlayStation 5? Because the only thing that I would worry about is the cost. Do we know what the cost of a standalone controller is?
Yeah, it's $110 Australian.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah.
So the affordability of being able to buy more controllers might be a bit standoffish unless they do come out with maybe a lessened hardwired version. I'd say they will down the line, but then you'd lose a lot of those functionalities, I'd imagine. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think controllers are always expensive. Like, I guess the PS4 DualShock was probably like $90 or $100 anyway, so it's only a bit extra from memory. I could be wrong.
They're still cheaper than a set of Joy-Cons. Joy-Cons are, I think, still 120 AUD.
Oh, man.
Ugh.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, that is probably a drawback for some people, but it's the kind of thing where, when they decided to reveal the name as DualSense, it was a bit confusing for a lot of people. Like, why not stick with DualShock? Like, that's what it's always been. DualShock 5 makes sense. You can see why they've made a distinction because it is so different from what we've been used to, and it really feels like an expensive piece of hardware. Like, it's worth the money. You can see how they can get away with charging that much for it.
And I like the aesthetic of this thing. Like, I know we poo-pooed on how the console itself looks. I like the look of the controller. Like, the color combination, the white's still a bit of like, whatever, but just the overall look and feel of this thing, I'm on board, and it gets good. Like full marks from me in that regard.
I mean, DualSense also works well because it, gets the sensors. I don't know what it tastes like, but...
Yeah, I haven't seen any videos of people licking it yet, but they'll be out there.
I'm sure they're out there, yeah. Yeah. I've got a few like pros and cons of the hardware to run through quickly before we move on. So, pros, the picture cards I think are really handy when you're playing. I think Ali used one of them for game help today in Astrobot to find like a missing puzzle piece, which is a really cool thing. With the game help feature, you can just like click on it. I did it in Spider-Man as well. Actually, there was a puzzle in like the last mission that I wasn't sure if it was glitched or if I just couldn't figure it out. So that
was the stupid rotating ball thing for the power.
Yeah, exactly.
That was frustrating the hell out of me.
It wasn't working for me. I had to like reload the checkpoint, and then I got it to work by following the game help. So hopefully devs utilize that. It is something that will differ based on the developer and how much they want to put into it. The picture cards are also great for jumping directly into specific missions. You can do that in Spider-Man, like any side mission or any challenge, like the stealth challenges, combat challenges. And instead of like swinging across the map or quick traveling to the closest point, you can just like jump straight to it. And it's so handy for people that have less time to get immersed in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried that at all, Brendan?
Negative.
No.
Negative. No.
It's very handy. The other cool things in the UI and stuff is the picture-in-picture screen share. Me and Jared were playing Astrobot on the first day, and we just wanted to try it out. So we did it, and we could both see what each other was playing in the top corner while we were chatting. And he'd done like a level before me, and he could say like, "Oh, there's like a puzzle piece missing over there," and it's not like too obtrusive in certain games. So that's kind of a cool little element to add to those like party experiences, especially, you know, if someone's having trouble with something, or they might be fighting a boss and showing you how to do it. I think that like there's a lot of possibilities for people to have fun with that.
Yeah.
The universal settings I really like you can set difficulty, text size, whether you want subtitles, whether you want to invert your controller to like your axis universally. I don't know if every game is doing it yet, but I like that that's there. The 3D audio I noticed in Miles Morales, Brendan, like it's particularly when you're walking around a crowded area, like there's a market or something, and you can really sense like the up and like the verticality of the audio, as well as just like the stereo from left to right. The cons now, I'm going to talk about a few. I've heard some people complain about rest mode, like the charge isn't happening. So if you plug into the front USB to charge your controller, it doesn't work in rest mode. It has to be plugged into the back, and that
caught me out the first few nights.
Yeah, and it's got to be patched. It's got to be one of those things that's patched, and I hope that they do that quickly, because there's a few things like this that are confusing a lot of people. The other one is the two different versions of a game. So when I installed AC Valhalla on day one, I was installing the PS4 version without realizing, and then I had to also install the PS5 version. And for some people, you can go in there and delete it because it takes up obviously a lot of room on your console, but it's automatically downloading the PS4 version for some people that I've been talking to, so they have to like constantly go in there and delete it or stop it from downloading, which is obviously not ideal. It also means that you can accidentally jump into the wrong version, and that means your save data won't be there, on top of it not being like the best version of the game. But also, like if you earn trophies in one version, they don't sync over to the PS5 version. So I've got like two separate trophy lists happening with Valhalla, which is really frustrating.
That sucks.
And it means like if I'm not going to platinum this game because it's freaking huge, which me and Brendan will talk about another day. But it means if I did want to platinum it, I have to go back and play like the first 20 hours to get all those like story trophies, which just sucks.
That's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the main things that I can just add. So I just think that they need to fix some of those UI things, make it simpler to like start a party chat and to see which games your friends are playing. The store is really good at how it's optimized. It's so quick to go in there and look through games.
It's so much better than what it used to be.
Oh, it was trash.
Hated the old store.
Yeah, it's just like workable now. Like the fact that it's not terrible is a great thing. But they still don't seem to have an area for discounts, which is odd. They have to fix that because that's obviously such an important part of the store. It's only showing like the PS Plus discounts.
Yeah.
But I guess it's something, I don't know if it's like they weren't ready to do some of these features or they just overlooked some of them. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be patches coming. And, you know, I was talking before about like jumping from one game to another. I'm aware like Xbox has the quick resume feature, which is even better for that from the sounds of it. And I really hope that Sony can find a way to add that in there because, you know, jumping into gameplay is super quick, but it's still going to shave off like 15, 20 seconds of that jumping between games if you can find a way for those quick resumes to be built into it.
Yeah, can confirm it's great and would be very happy to see that implemented on Sony as well because it does save some valuable time going from game to game if you are looking to sort of jump around and experience a few things in quick fashion. But Miss Hart, anything else positive or negative you want to say regarding hardware?
I just wanted to mention that, like, graphically, like, Miles Morales, I'm still a bit iffy on whether that's a good example of, like, graphical improvements to the console, but Astro's Playroom was stunning. It was such a beautiful game, so polished. So there's, like, a lot of games that will come out, like, this, that has that same, like, kind of cartoony aesthetic that will, you know, really shine. Is it Ratchet and Clank?
It looks
great.
real nice.
The Keena's Forest or whatever that game is, like the Pixar looking one. That looks bridge to So these games are really going to benefit from it. So it's really beautiful. So I can say on that sense that those games are going to look really polished.
Yeah. All right. So before we jump into the final part of the podcast, I thought we'd do a quick little ad read from our friends over at Manscaped. And this special PlayStation 5 centric episode of The Hungry Gamers is brought to you, as I said, by our friends over there at Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming products who want to help you level up your game. If you want to maximize your Wampa fruits, listen up, as your joystick will never look and feel better.
The first thing you got to hear about is the Perfect Package 3.0 kit. It's loaded with everything you need to increase your teraflops. All starts with the Lawnmower 3.0, complete with advanced skin-safe technology, which will leave you free of nicks and cuts via way of its patented ceramic blade. It also comes with a ton of other liquid formulations to round out your grooming routine.
Some of these liquid tools for your family jewels include the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing deodorant for your pokeballs. This is a total game changer while you are not already putting deodorant on the smelliest part of your body. Next up is the Crop Reviver, an AoE spray on ball toner that not only refreshes your concussion grenades, but also gives you a little pep in your shadow step. The Perfect Package also comes with a nifty travel bag, disposable shaving mats, and a set of the comfiest anti-chafing boxes you have ever worn. This is the Perfect Package for your perfect package.
And you listeners can get 20% off and free shipping with the code 8bit over at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code ATEBIT. Remember, people, nobody likes a messy controller.
That's right.
That is right.
It's hard reading someone else's copy.
Yeah, sorry.
Especially with these wonderful Brendan's wise pun-tastic game references that he puts in there. They're great, but it's quite funny.
Yeah, I know the way I write's different to the way you two probably both write as well. So like,
no, it's all good.
But you stuck the landing. And I think, weaving in what you were mentioning regarding Miles and Astro and the graphics. So if we're talking about the games as a whole, my first thought before we sort of go granular and go potentially title by title or some of the titles we're playing, I thought the launch lineup was weak, but that's, I think, something that sits on both this and the Series X. So I'm not just, saying this is the worst, this is better. I'm saying overall launch titles were a little bit light on. But this is something like doing a bit more research and digging it up, like looking at the PlayStation 4, the exclusive titles I'm talking about primarily here, because we did get, enhanced
Black
versions
Flag.
of NBA and Valhalla and stuff. With the PS4, all we got was Flower, Killzone Shadowfall, Knack, Resogun, Sound Shapes, Escape Plan, and Flow. I think I've played 2 of those games.
I think Flow and Flower had come out well before that.
Okay.
To be honest, I think they were PS3.
Okay, well, scrap that from the archives. The 2 lists that I correlated information from, clearly lying to me. Fuck you, internet. But so we got Astro's Playroom, Demon's Souls. We got Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, and then Sackboy: A Big Adventure. So they're the 5 games asterisks that were released as next gen or now current gen exclusives, and 2 of those, for all intents and purposes, is remasters, like with Spider-Man, and then Demon's Souls is probably the bigger leap forward from its predecessor compared to Spider-Man, and it's certainly the game that's on a lot of people's lips. But there's some variety there. Astro, everybody gets it, so it's packing awesome, nice work, Sony. I love that. And we've already talked about, I guess, the great levels of immersion and just the aesthetic in that game. Like, it is very pretty, very vibrant. The characters are cute and quirky. It's a great world, and it's an accessible game for everybody. Outside of this, all I've been playing also is Miles Morales, and as you touched on, Ali, it's more of like, I think, subtle enhancements and improvements. Like, it's like you don't find yourself constantly with your jaw on the floor playing this game moment to moment. It's more so parts where you maybe perched on top of a skyscraper and you're just looking at the sunrise or the sunset, and the lighting effects and the ray tracing combined with the HDR really popping and making this game shine in that regard. So it's more about the subtle improvements and enhancements I find in that regard. Anything else you wanted to add, JP and Miss Hart, on that Spider-Man situation? Like, obviously we've got a spoiler cast coming, so I don't think we need to go into narrative and things, but just from a pure graphical and playability perspective.
I think the draw distance is really fantastically utilized in a game like that. Like, you're perched up on a building and you can like see across the whole city. It's fantastic. The way that we've already mentioned, like the quick loading, but previously if you were like going to jump into a warehouse to fight some baddies, there'd be like a loading screen. Now it's just seamlessly from one area to the next, not a fraction of a second of loading taking place. The gameplay itself, I feel like they've tweaked and improved on 2018 Spider-Man. There's less reliance on some of the stuff that wasn't so fun, like the stealth areas that we had to do with Mary Jane and things like that. Like the little Bioshock style puzzles in the lab are gone. Obviously, that was a hit and miss. I quite liked it, but it was definitely a break in the game. So succinctly, like, this is to me a complete game and a great way to launch the PS5. Like, I feel like this lineup is way better than what we've had in previous generations, personally.
Miss Hart, where do you stand on this? I can see your cheeky Cheshire Cat grin on the Zoom call here.
So this is my first Spider-Man game. So I did Miles Morales. This is my first dive into the Spider-Man games. Thank you for them putting in a recap of story. So I've spoiled the first one for myself to play story-wise, but that's okay. I'll probably, who knows, maybe give it a go. I didn't have fun, but thanks for the quick load times, because every time I screwed up, at least it loaded pretty quickly back to the start. I had never gotten so frustrated. I've written here in my notes, I don't understand Spider-Man physics. And then I wrote, man, I'm not really having fun. Because the rhino thing, I couldn't nail it. I kept on losing him. I couldn't nail the web swinging and all that sort of business, and lining up, like, you know, how to get there faster. I think I got the controls mixed up, and then fighting the enemies at the start, like, it felt like Batman but worse. So now that kind of first sequence is over, and I believe that the world is now open, I kind of put the controller down. I said, you know what, I'll approach the game another day now that the world is open, and I can kind of, like, you know, practice a bit more, as opposed to kind of, you know, learn the controls, learn how I'm supposed to play while, like, a story kind of is happening. And try not to die. Exactly. Yeah. Also, I don't know if anyone else feels this, but the actual, like, interface feels really, like, tiny, like, and really wedged in the corner there. So, like, I couldn't tell if I was running out of health or my web to, like,
your web shooters were low and stuff. Yeah, I get that. Like,
right, yeah.
It certainly is small. Like, I didn't find myself squinting to read it, but it's not right there, big and bold, so you know what's always going on. Some of the controls, just the down on the D-pad for the health bumps and stuff like that is a little bit strange. But overall, when you're web slinging and flying around, it feels phenomenal. But when there is a simple thing where you got to get up one little alcove or one little part of bridge, that can be really frustrating. But overall, graphically, it feels nice. It's cheeky in regards to if you want 4K, you don't get 60 frames, and if you want 60 frames, you don't get 4K. So you got your performance or your fidelity. So depending on which way you want to go, do you want a bit more of a graphical bump or do you want a higher frame rate? I played fidelity and loved it. Like, I'm all about just the give me all the resolution. You know, give me all those lighting and particle effects and stuff. But they're the only 2 games I've played on the PlayStation 5 so far. So I don't have too much to add outside of that. Miss Hart, sounds like you've just played the same 2 I have, but Jono, you've done a few different ones?
Yeah, so firstly, before we leave Spider-Man for good, I was going to say, Ali, that really surprises me that you had such trouble with it. I guess because you haven't played the first one, they probably...
that's what I was wondering.
I think they probably assume that people have because everyone played it.
Which is a bad way to go.
Yeah, and they give you a little bit of swinging before you have to actually chase Rhino, but probably not enough. They do,
but a lot is going on. A lot is going on.
And I think you'll find like there's a real momentum to it, and once you've learnt all the quick shortcuts, and I'd encourage you to do the traversal challenges because that teaches you like the web zips and how to like run up and around walls and all that kind of stuff. That'll make it so much more fun to traverse, because like the traversal is probably like the best thing about the game, and it's what you're saying is like the most frustrating thing.
Watching everyone play, it looks like fun.
Yeah.
So when I was having a horrible time with it, I was like, no, this was the part that I was excited for.
What I might just say is just maybe just put Miles Morales down for a few more days. We'll have a spoiler cast up and talk about some of the mechanics and that, and go listen to that on the THG RSS within the next handful of days as well. So maybe that might be the little oomph you need to get back into your Spidey suit and, you know, start swinging with the way that Spider-Man intended you to swing.
For sure. So moving on from there to Astro, we've talked about it a bit already, but if we can talk about more like the gameplay of it, I'm really into this. It's something that like I'm so glad everyone has a chance to play it because it comes with the PS5. But it's so cute and feels so like Nintendo-like in the way that it's so cute and put together. I love all the homages to the history of PlayStation, from like the little characters, like, you know, you've got like your little Kratos Astrobot in a boat. You've got like your
I want to mention one.
Yeah, your Resident Evil, like
one.
There's like the Umbrella Corporation scientist with his like you know, poison, whatever the poisons or the chemical
the
compounds
T-virus.
called. Yeah, exactly. You know, he's holding it and you can punch him and he'll like kind of juggle, try not to drop it. There's so many cute little references throughout there. What was the one you wanted to talk about, Ali?
So one of my favorite one of my favorite games is Heavy Rain.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually had a little character laying dead in the rain with an origami figure on his chest. I'm like, this is more. I was pretty happy because it is a favorite game of mine that it had representation there.
Yeah.
So
there's also a trophy.
Until Dawn one.
There's also a trophy called Jason, where when it's raining, if you go and like stand underneath like shelter, take shelter from the rain. So yeah, there's a lot of care and attention to detail within like the history of PlayStation that people will, whatever your favorite PlayStation game is, there's probably a representation of it. And not to mention all the artifacts and stuff that you can unlock and look at in the Labo room, and going on that trip down memory lane with all the peripherals is a lot of fun. Definitely.
I thought it was a bit cheeky that they called it the Labo room after the Nintendo Labo cardboard gaming interaction extravaganza.
That threw me off.
Yeah, it made me wonder if there's like an etymology with that word that's specific to like gaming or something. But yeah, anyway, what did you guys actually think of the game itself? Not just like the controller and how that works, but the platforming and everything.
I think it felt great, and like Ali touched on Ratchet and Clank earlier, like, so I think for when we get the full AAA complete game, like Astro's Playroom is a complete game, but it is a glorified tech demo, really.
Yeah. And
and that's not poo-pooing on it anyway. Like, I can speak very highly of that. But I think when we get these true next level games, the platform is going to be really, really special. Controls in Astros felt really smooth. Just the depth of field and the 3D environments, the platforming and the traversal felt great. So I'm excited to see that realized in some of these future titles that are coming out. That's for sure.
I just want to say that I'm firsthand not a platformer. Like, I don't like platformer games. And even when Jono was trying to pitch it to me, like, you just play 15 minutes, please. You need to play 15 minutes. I loaded it up and I've almost finished it. I love this game. Like, I know it's meant to be like a tech demo kind of thing, but I'm slightly obsessed with it. I'm, completing collecting all the collectibles, doing 100% completion. It's a really fun game. So yeah, to back Jono, everyone really should give it a go if you can.
It feels like it's transported me to back when I was a kid playing this game. Like I felt this like level of joy playing it, like booting it up, and even just going into the first world and running around. It felt like I was 10 years old again, playing old school platformers and whatnot, and just experiencing all this tech and this just mystery and awesomeness on the screen for the first time. So it was testament to Sony.
The worlds are amazing, like design-wise, sound-wise. Like I loved Memory Meadows, which is like the cloudy kind of like stage, and then I think it's CPU Jungle with the little tune on the background as well. And
when you get to the end of every level and it has like the startup screen homages, it just like takes you back. Like it's a really cheap like way to just pull on nostalgia, but it works so well.
It really does.
And it's you can just see the love that's gone into it with like the little the platforms themselves are sometimes made of like, the controller ports or memory cards or just things that remind you of the console.
Jumping on a little bouncy joystick and things like that. Yeah. And it's fully realized. It's really cute and very endearing and very respectful to previous gens. And it really encompasses the future for the console, I think, that game. Like, it's graphically great. The interaction is phenomenal, and just the immersion and the crazy differences that you're going to be experiencing using that DualSense moment to moment in future games has got me really hyped for the future.
Yeah, it's got me pumped to play Sackboy whenever I get around to it. Like, seeing like the cuteness and how well that everything can work together has me excited to eventually get to Sackboy and the Pathless and some of these other, even Bug Snacks, like to see what can be done on the console. But other than that, like the games I've been playing is AC Valhalla, jumping from the PS4 to the PS5 version. And if you've listened to Brendan talk about it on THG, like it's basically the same thing. Like it looks better, it feels a bit smoother, 60 frames, the quick loading, it's great.
Still no sex scenes, god damn it.
There's also in the settings like a slider for turning on and off nudity, so I'm not sure where that's going to come into it if there's no love scenes.
I've seen 4 sets of boobies in my 80 hours, and that was in one brothel, one scene, one world event. No, it was actually part of a mainline story. So 4 sets of boobies in a brothel. That's the only nudity I've seen. I'm very upset.
Brendan's getting his BPH, booze per hour.
Yeah, you sound unimpressed. That's a metric that I haven't heard in a game before.
You'd think when they have a nudity slider, like you'd be seeing a lot of nudity. But 4 boobies or 8 boobies? Come on.
They set up your expectations. Yeah. Aside from that, NBA 2K is the one that I jumped into. The last is more 2K. Like I'm excited to play it more as time goes on. But for now, like it looks mostly the same. Like if you get a close-up shot, it definitely looks a lot better. We've seen like the videos of the 4K sweat and everything, and it's all there. But the city is the area that I need to check out because that's like the new attraction. It's like an MMO style hub. Like they've taken it to the next level from like the neighborhood in previous gen. The problem is you have to play like at least 3 or 4 hours worth of games in the park to get to the city, and I don't really know why 2K's made that decision. I feel like it's almost like to gate it off from people, like they can slowly let people in there. I don't know if they can handle it or something. That's my guess.
They'll probably have a little pay. You could use VC to get in there soon. You wait.
It would be
just
tempting because a lot of people are frustrated with having to kind of grind away at this game mode that they don't like or don't ever play to just to see what's new in this game. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the My Career story is the same from what I can tell, same characters and stuff. So if you played the PS4 version, it's going to be a definite upgrade. And I kind of saved myself like hours like I didn't put a million hours into it like I usually would, because I knew that this version was coming. So once, the dust settles and I've had a look at Bug Snacks and I've had a look at, finishing Valhalla and whatever, I'm sure I'll get back to it before Cyberpunk comes along and sweeps us all away.
Yeah, so I think if we start looking at putting a bow on this, as far as initial impressions, overall feeling, I don't have any buyer's remorse for sort of getting in and getting it day one and being an early adopter. I don't feel that probably it's necessary for a lot of general gamers to probably try and be getting in day one. Like, wait a few months, get some more titles in the catalog that you can experience. I feel that it's probably not an essential day one. Well, you can't get it day one now anyway, but like if the option was there to try and still get it in a hurry, like if you're looking to pull all your savings into this or wait, if you can hold out, I'd probably say you could hold out. Like, there is some great upticks in graphical enhancements. Moment to moment gameplay doesn't change too much outside of faster load times and wider draw distance and game rendering, but overall you'll notice some positives and you'll feel like you are playing next gen. But as I said, it doesn't feel like it's this big momentous step forward. It's a step in the right direction. That's not a bad thing.
No,
but it is a heavy outlay. Like, you're looking at upwards close to $1,000 if you're getting a few games in the console and things like that. So it is a pretty hefty undertaking. But I'm happy. As far as, we've talked about review scores of consoles and things like that. What was it? 8 out of 10s they got. IGN gave this and the Series X both 8s, and then the DualSense was a 9. I probably agree with those scores. Like, I'm not regretful. The console feels good, looks ugly, games look good, some games feel good. But yeah, anything you guys wanted to say, sort of closing arguments or closing feelings and opinions before we get on out of here?
I'm just excited. This is my first launch console that I've ever bought, so
welcome.
It's like it feels like Christmas, and I've got all these different games to play and all these things like to discover, and even like experiencing problems and wondering if they're going to get fixed. Like, it's just a whole new world to be part of. And at the same time, like, my boss asked me if she had to get one for her son because he's been asking for it, and I was like, no. Like, if you've got a PS4, like, just hold on. Like, maybe wait for Christmas or something. Like, you don't. Like, if some kid out there is telling their parents they need the new console, like, you don't really. Like, you're not missing out on many experiences, especially, in this window. If you've got the disposable income to make irresponsible purchases like we do, especially like Brendan does with his McDonald's Xbox.
I regret nothing.
They're like, yeah, like if that's how you want to spend your money, go for it. But I think, there's no harm in holding off for a bit. And the FOMO's there, and I see people like getting anxious about like, oh, mine hasn't arrived or there's no stock and I'm trying to get one. I'd say, like, get one when it's right for you and when you feel like you can afford it, and don't worry that you're missing out too much, because there's not going to be, like there have been in other generations, as many games locked away to this version, because there's so many PS4s out there. There's 111 million in the world. They're going to keep making games for the PS4 for a long time. I think Ratchet is one of the first like exclusives. So, I mean, unless you're a huge Ratchet fan, just wait. I know like people like Benny and NPCs and guys like that are playing Spider-Man on PS4. I haven't heard any like massive problems with that. So, it's still an option to wait for maybe, Christmas, sales, whatever it is. It's an awesome console. If you got the money for it, grab one and enjoy. But at the same time, it's not going to be like you're not hugely missing out on something quite yet.
Especially if you don't have the TV to really get the
Exactly.
benefits. Like, if you're still running an old HD 1080p, you're not going to get the full benefits and all the sizzle from this console. So that's another investment that you need to be mindful of too. Miss Hart, what about you?
I'm in complete agreement. Like, you know, if you are a person that is strictly a PlayStation player, you don't buy consoles, you're not a PC person, and this is your console of choice, if you've got the money for it, jump in. Like, you know, you have been waiting quite some time for the new gen. It's here. There's a lot of benefits to it. We've gone on about the controller, which is an experience of itself. But was it worth the hysteria of, you know, being completely sold out and people stressing themselves over? Maybe not. But yeah, if you're in the position to get yourself one, you've got the TV, you've got the money for it, you're ready for the new gen, yeah, join us. But don't rush out if you're not ready. There's, you know, plenty of time.
It's also been like the kind of year where it's like, yeah, like maybe treat yourself. Like if you can afford it, like have fun with it, enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been our PlayStation 5 early impressions, PlayStation 5 centric podcast, just to give you guys and girls and everyone else out there just some feelings from behind our curtain, you know, trying to be as honest and as unfiltered and as uncensored as possible, talking about the highs and the lows, hopefully to help shape your decision if you are looking to buy one of these leading up to Christmas. Like we're not here to sugarcoat and sort of shill our way to false promises. So yeah, that's us. You can find us all as a collective at We Are 8-Bit on the socials. You can find Jono at Jono himself. You can find Miss Ali Hart at Miss Ali Hart. And you can find myself at Brendan 8-Bit. But yeah, anything else you just want to say before we say goodbye for another episode?
I kind of want to play Detroit Become Human.
Yeah, so you can see where they drew most of their influence from. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, well, let's get on out of here. Until next week, 8-Bit Nation, or next time, 8-Bit Nation. Much love.
Stay hungry.
Stay hungry.
You've been listening to The Hungry Gamers, one of many gaming and geek culture related podcasts from the 8-Bit Collective over on 8bit.net. Check out more episodes on your podcast service of choice. And while you're there, please be sure to rate and subscribe. Until next time, boys and girls, stay hungry.